Hey, good morning, Mortgage Coach. Welcome to our Tuesday morning interview. Today, I have Mr. Steve Scanlon, Coach Steve Scanlon. How are you doing, Steve?
Dave, I'm doing great. My computer's high, so I'm not looking down at it, and I feel empowered because it's high. Thank you.
All right. So folks, before I get into this interview with Steve, I want to remind you to watch and share last week's call with Chris Smith. I thought he did a fantastic job of sharing some ideas and strategies to do a better job of creating digital friends with Facebook. Also talked a little bit about lead conversion. So if you missed last Tuesday's call with the author of the conversion code, Chris Smith, check it out. It was fantastic. Today, we're going to talk about changing your behavior, changing your habits, primarily the types of behavior and habits that would help you make more money as a mortgage professional. One of the conversations Steve Scanlon and I have been having is this discussion on what's more important to change, accountability or just thinking differently. And Steve makes the case that accountability is overrated, and again, I think of all the times that I've changed. Some of those times I had accountability partners. Some of those times I had accountability wrapped around that change. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I just changed. But one thing I always had when I made a change is I thought about what I needed to do differently. I had an epiphany. I had someone that I respected who made the change, and that inspired me. But there was something about how I thought that really triggered the change. So we want to talk about that. Couple things before I unleash Mr. Steve Scanlon, who could literally talk for the entire day about this topic. I want to set the table with everybody on this call. If you are a leader to other people, hopefully you're going to listen intentionally on how can I be a better leader to my team. Everybody, we all know that even though we're leaders to other people, change starts from within. We got to own it ourselves. So I want you to listen both as a leader who's going to mentor your peers, and I want you to listen to this call as someone who has to make some change yourself. So before I bring Steve in, I do want to give you guys an opportunity in the question section. If there is something that you're trying to change about yourself right now, we are in the end of February, last week of February 2018. If there was just something that you're like, I'm working on X, whether that's losing weight, whether that's prospecting more, whether that's I want to use MortgageCoach with every borrower, whether I want to get over my call reluctancy of meeting with realtors, I want to start doing video, whatever. If there is something that you want to change in March of 2018, let us know what that is. Right now, post what is it that you want to change and get better at. Let Steve and I know what that is right now. And by the way, so far, we've got prospecting more, being more consistent, Steve, time management, time blocking, mortgage coach, more annual reviews, work out 5 days a week. I want to be laser focused. I want to be more present. All of what you said, Dave. Okay, you got to pick one. You can't change it all. Use the TCA as a tool to gain realtors, not only clients. So Steve, the change is coming in. So Steve, before we tackle this, just in case, I don't think it's possible that there's anyone on this call that doesn't know you, but if someone is hearing you for the first time, if you could just tell us who you are and how you know so much about this topic.
Wow. Well, what if I didn't? Then what would you do with that information? It's very possible, by the way. My name is Steve Scanlon. I am the CEO of a firm called Rewire Inc. Rewire is really all about how we rewire the way that we think in our brains. I spent my firm it'll be alive now for 5 years in March. The 13 years prior to that, I was an executive coach with a company called Building Champions, many of you know, in Lake Oswego, Oregon, wonderful company there. And prior to that, I was the national production manager for a company out of Colorado in mortgage banking. And so, and also when I spent my time as a coach, and certainly even over the last 5 years, Dave, I've just seemed to marinate a lot near this industry, and we've worked one-on-one and one-to-many with countless people, both on the production side, the operation side, certainly the leadership side. And so it feels like I've been around the industry for a really long time, and we still are, and we're doing some really cool things. Today, the application of Rewire to mortgage banking is much more on the emotional intelligence side and how we change the way that we think. And I think you brought up a really interesting topic right out of the gate with regard to, what do you want to get more of? What's your gap? What's your delta? How do you want to change? And I was trying to write feverishly as you listed some of those things off. I didn't get to all of them because they were coming in pretty quick. So how's that? That good enough introduction?
I think it's a great introduction. So you're the one who started this conversation with me about a month ago, where you were like, you didn't say accountability is BS, but you were like, the industry, pounds that a lot more, and there's a bigger way to think about this, and there actually might be something that really is the bullseye. If you want to change, this is where it starts. So why don't you tell that conversation to everybody?
Well, first, I think we have to all recognize, I hope we recognize that if you want something different in your life, if you want to grow, you want to be laser focused, be more present, time management, I think oftentimes people undervalue the idea that these improvements, these things that we want, these goals, they represent change. If you don't change personally, the likelihood of you achieving that goal is fairly low. And so I think that's one of the reasons people go to workshops and seminars and they sit there and go, I can do all these things and I can make these calls and prospect like this and get really excited, only to go back in about an hour or a day later, not do any of it. Because we undervalue the idea that these goals are changes that we must make. And Dave, you and I have spent a lot of time with that. I'm a big believer, and I'll just say it right out of the gate, that I don't believe that you can help people act differently. You mentioned behavior. I don't think we can change people's behavior until we help people and help ourselves change the way that we think. I think our thinking obviously precludes and is a forerunner to our behavior. So to me, the focus is much more on our thinking. And Dave, to bring you back to the dialogue that we started with, that hopefully this call can be about. It seems like every time I talk to you, you and I we have these moments, and I think it's one of the things I love about you. And I think you've built an amazing company. I think MortgageCoach is great, and you've got some pretty strong and solid ideas about things. And I think you and I don't mind mixing it up and really getting into it. Maybe that's what Pat Lencioni even meant about in his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, about the establishment of healthy conflict, right? So I had made a comment to you as we were talking about, I think we were talking about the push-up challenge that you and I are in, which you could tell people about, but that you had said something about accountability, and I had come back and said, I'm in the midst of writing an article on that. And it's after 18 years of being in this business, I've concluded that I think accountability is a waste of time. And I know that challenges people. And I think also from a marketing perspective, if I'm just being transparent, when you write articles, it's you write these kind of grandiose titles that you hope people will read. And I think we've been buying into the concept of accountability, and you read about it, and it's in all kinds of books, and certainly thought leaders say it, that you need an accountability partner and accountability. And it has come to, in my understanding of this, after a long time of doing this, and my comment to you, Dave, and this is where we can kick off the dialogue, was that I have found that people that look for accountability are often, not always, so if this doesn't include you listening, but people that are looking for accountability are often looking for a prosthetic for real change in their thinking. Because changes to our thinking is, as it turns out, really hard. It's hard work. You know, we want to believe that what we do and what we say has always been right. That's part of the lizard brain that we've written extensively about. And so I think people that look to accountability, and you and I, Dave, maybe one of the things we do is we define that, right? Like, what is accountability? Like, if I tell you I'm going to do 50 push-ups and I don't do it, are you going to fire me as a friend? Are we going to have words? Are you going to hit me? You know, I find it interesting even how people perceive that. But there usually is some consequence. Wouldn't you agree? When people talk about accountability, there's an implied consequence. If I don't do a thing, then what's going to happen? And so right. I guess to start the dialogue off, the article that I'm writing is, in my opinion, and that's all it is really right now, but in my opinion, and I think we've got some pretty cool science to support it, by the way, looking for someone else to hold you accountable before you look to your own brain and how you're thinking about a problem is often a prosthetic. And I could even tell you that, and you and I had this dialogue, that why, you know, you've had an accountability partner before, but why even when we do that, do we fade back to old patterns? When the accountability goes away, there's no reason, if we didn't change how we think about a problem, why wouldn't we go back to the same old crap that we were doing before? So I guess if you sustain accountability forever and ever and ever in your life, you maybe, but that's not usually very realistic. It comes, it goes. People don't really know what to do with the consequence piece. So that's my contention.
So let's go this direction. So first, I want to weigh in, and I do not think accountability is a waste of time. I believe that an accountability is just like we're golfing. It's a club in the bag, and it could be effective in creating change. And I know Steve said that to exaggerate, because him and I have talked about this enough. But the concern is that people are using accountability as a crutch, or like that is the club for change. And no, the conversation I think we want to have, and I don't want to spend too much time on accountability, because there's been a lot of calls on accountability. If we have time at the end, we can talk about definition. I want to make sure we take this conversation where we really get people to think differently. And I also want to give people tactics and tools to do it, so that we don't spend too much time just going high level, thinking differently. What does that mean? I want to give people an obstacle course that, like, hey, if you want to, let's just pick 2 habits that I know will make loan officers more money in March of 2018. I know for a fact that if you're a loan officer and you put in more time prospecting, every single business day in March, you will make more money in March and in April. And I know that if every single borrower that you get a chance to serve and educate them on their mortgage options, if you use MortgageCoach total cost analysis, I know that you will convert more of them. I will know you get more referrals. You will make more money. You will like your job better. I know that. I know I have those 2 beliefs. So let's say for the loan officer that does need to prospect more, and by the way, I'm going to ask one more question, everybody. How much more do you need to prospect per week? Is it 2 more hours, 3 more hours? Everybody on this call, you know what you're supposed to be doing. How much more time should you be prospecting every single week? Just answer that one question for me. And by the way, if you feel like you're killing it and I don't need to prospect more, actually, I need to back off that prospecting. I'm doing too much of it. Put a minus 1 hour, minus 3 hours. So right now, the answers are a lot, 5 more hours, 20 more hours, 2 more hours a day. That means, by the way, whoever said that means you're not prospecting. 2 days a week, double, 2 hours per day, 5 hours, 2 hours. By the way, no one has said I need to back off my prospecting. I haven't got that answer yet. I'm doing too much of it, and geez, I got to slow down, So everybody does it. So Steve, let's do this. Let's go really tactical. What are some things, some obstacles we can put them through that would get them to start thinking differently, so that they're not using accountability partners they are just reprogramming themselves to get after it?
Yeah, Dave, I appreciate the tangibility of the question. I really do. I don't want to bring us backwards at all, but one of the things that I want to invite everybody listening to this call to do, you said something, Dave, and I did write it down, that I thought was really important to and germane to this topic, and that is, you know what you're supposed to be doing. You said that. You know what you're supposed to be doing. So I find that interesting because if we know, right, if our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that uses logic and language and reason, the higher level thinking, if we know, why aren't we doing it? Why are you getting all these plus signs? And so I just want to point out that if you hold calls and just give tactics and you basically tell a group of people to do things that they already know they should do, it's just an interesting dialogue. So maybe step one in the tactic is to stop looking for things that you already know. You don't need more information. You know, it's cool that Dave puts out all this stuff on the Mortgage Coach, but if you already know that doing a total cost analysis would be good for your business, you don't need that defined for you anymore. At least your prefrontal cortex doesn't need that anymore. If you know you need to prospect more. So I would only start by saying, clearly, it's not just a function of our logic. It's not just a function of our logic. Dave and I've pointed that out whenever we do workshops, when we're working with the prefrontal cortex versus the limbic system, the part of your brain that uses more emotion, which is what emotional intelligence is all about. I've watched people in workshops, mortgage workshops, attend, and you get some speaker saying stuff like, hey, did you know if you make more calls to your database, if you make more calls to your referral partners, you'll get more business? And I watch people write that and think, this is really good. And I'm thinking, that's so weird. I guarantee you that group of people knew that before they went into that workshop. So step one would be recognizing, so this is step one, I'm trying to make it tangible for you, Dave. Recognize that what you know is not necessarily what you do. And I know that's kind of high level, and I know it feels maybe a little esoteric, but recognize that what you know is not necessarily what you do. That's just point number one. I'm hoping for some ahas, some epiphanies, some insights with your people to go, yeah, why do I keep getting Dave Savage or anybody else to tell me how cool the Mortgage Coach is when I already know that? Clearly, it's a different part of our brain that needs to be activated if we're actually going to go from what we know to what we do. Does that make sense, Dave?
That does make sense. And by the way, I got a number of questions. I do want to define two things, because one person asked, how much should I be prospecting? And I answered this in our Facebook group. You know, I put it out there for some of the top producers, and basically it's 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week. And maybe if you're already closing 8 loans a month and you're busy with transactions, you could scale that back a little bit. And by the way, if you're brand new in the business and it's your first 18 months, double that. Probably, you know, half the day should be prospecting until you have the business. So for the person that asked that, you know, good question. I want to make sure you're defining the change, and I don't want to steal any thunder from Coach Steve Scanlon, but you know, part of changing is getting clear on what is the change you want. You know, defining. You know, I know that whenever I talk to people that have made a change, and we'll just use Mortgage Coach for example, and I ask, why do you use Mortgage Coach? I mean, they are like super clear, it's personal, it's clear, and it's a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Uh-oh, you froze.
You know, when I talk to, you know, Jeremy Forcier, one of the prospects so much, it's like, boom, you know, I mean, energy, clarity, passion, there's clarity. When I talk to someone, hey, why don't you prospect enough? Well, there's uncertainty, there's unclarity, there's, you know, there's just this lack of focus and clarity. So I just wanted to put that out there. Steve, I'll throw it back to you. And folks, if you do have questions, post those here. You know, we've still got 40 minutes with one of the best coaches in the country. And when it comes to changing the way you think, we got an hour with it. We got 40 more minutes with this guy. And there's probably no one we could have that's a bigger gift to the mortgage coach community when it comes to thinking differently. So bring in the questions, and Steve, let's start tackling some of this.
Again, I put together 5 different steps, if you want to call them that, ways, pillars, strategies, laws. People call them all kinds of different things. I put together 5. If you don't mind, you reminded me of another, and if you want, I want to ask you a quick question. When you get the Jeremy Forciers and these other people that are that are advocates and using the product and using the mortgage coach and actually seeing results, and you talk about their clarity and all of that, I think people would want to know from you, Dave, again, it's going beyond the logic. How is it that they speak? What is it that they're doing or saying? What's the feeling of it? Why do some people have the capacity, in your view, to take a product like yours that's really good, helps people, and go the distance and speak about it and talk about it and articulate it and use it with everybody, and other people don't? Why that gap? How would you define that, Dave?
Wow. Well, I'll just use an example of an interview I did with Kelly Marsh recently. She's a $100 million producer. If you're watching the recording of this, I'll put a link down below. Also, a conversation I had with John Downs, another, super performer who made the shift, and first of all, they got clear that they needed to make a change, and that there was no neat line around that. It was a lot of different things that got them to that point. There was usually some pain associated to it, like, oh, I lost a loan to a big bank, and I'm like, that didn't used to happen to me, or I'm giving up a lot of pricing exceptions now, so there was a little pain, a little clarity, and then they just ripped off the Band-Aid. And this is where, like in John Downs' case, he said, hey, I decided that I'm going to start giving a total cost analysis to every client, and I told my realtors, and I told my team, again, that was the accountability piece. But in order for him to, kind of burn that boat and tell those things, he had to think differently. And then one last thing, which might be off point, in each case, they took some actions. Like in Kelly Marsh's case, she said, literally, I did 5 total cost analysis in one day. And by the time I had done it 10 times, the pain of change wasn't there. So there was a think differently. In John's interview, he talked about accountability. Kelly didn't talk about accountability. She just said, I think differently, I acted differently, and I never turned back. So those are a couple examples.
Great, Dave. I love it. Thank you for the tangible examples. You did say one thing that really intrigued me. They got clear. And the clarity that they got was in part due to some pain. Did I hear that right? They got clear. And so my question for all the people on the call is, and you might want to write this down if you're on the call, when will I get clear? When will I get clear? Right? And by the way, there's a great saying, I forget who says all these great sayings. It was never me. I'm not clever enough to come up with great sayings, but somebody once said that we make changes in life under 3 circumstances: when we've heard it, had it, or hurt. Heard it, like you might be on the call today going, this is the 53rd time I've heard about doing a total cost analysis, or that I should prospect more. And maybe it's the time that you need, the whole when the student is ready, the teacher will appear kind of thing. Maybe you've heard it enough. Maybe you're fed up. That's it. I've had it. I've heard it, had it, or maybe you actually get hurt. You lose loans, you lose income, and you're hurt. And if I'm being honest, Dave, too many people in our world wait for door number 3. So if you're on the call and you want to wait to get clear, as Dave said, and one of the ways that we often do that is to wait for pain, you can. I don't think it's the most advisable way. I mean, that'd be an interesting program. Invite pain into your life so that you can get clear. you know, especially when you have access to stuff like this. You know, Dave's going to put out there 4 however many different interviews that he's done with people. And if you're part of this community, you can go access how people have got clear. Watch that stuff, learn from it, and realize, and I point this out, Dave, and I hope this is okay, that if you listen to Kelly or Jeremy or any of the people that Dave mentioned, and with all due respect to those people, I want everyone to know that being really great at this business, and frankly really great at any business, does not require you to have a super high IQ. You don't have to be super intelligent, but you do have to take action. And in fact, it's very possible that we can overthink all this and not take action. And you know, you said it might have been off topic. No, you actually have to go do it. So my recommendation would be take what you know, get clear, however getting clear looks like to you. Maybe you have to face some of your own pain. And then if you need to put in 2 more hours, do it. And that comes down to kind of some Nike coaching, just do it. But if you, whatever you're going to go do, let's say you put in an hour more a day, and I'm going to give you some strategies on how to do that at 2 hours more a day. I want you to know this, you will feel pain. It'll be painful for you. If this is super easy to just go do, you people are smart. You'd have already done it. You'd already be there. So to put an extra hour in a day to pick up the phone or to go out onto social media, or however it is you connect with people and actually prospect and make connections, when you're doing that, if you actually take some steps and do things that you didn't do before, you're going to feel a little pain. Because you're going to also have to sacrifice, which I mentioned to you the last call, Dave, you're going to have to sacrifice some stuff that you would have done in place of that. So the people that say, that's it, I'm going to do 5 total cost analysis today. I don't know how much time that took. Was it Kelly that did that?
Yeah, she recommended.
So I'm kind of curious.
Go after it.
How long did that take her? Did that take her an hour, a couple hours to actually sit down and go do that? Let's say it did.
Yeah,
It would have, I'd like to go back and interview her and go, I'd like to know what you had to work through from an emotional pain perspective to actually sit and focus and do that, because that's what it is. And that's why I told you last time, if you actually want to do that, get ready to feel a little pain. That's okay.
Well, let's see if Kelly will do an interview with you and I where we really go through what was, let's dissect, dissect a change. We'll put that on the to-do list. You and I will do that. So, hey, here's the deal. We're 28 minutes into this call, and I think we've covered it at a pretty high level. And I actually, someone gave me a hard time on a comment on social where they're like, hey, the call was great. It was high level. I want tools. I want scripts. By the way, the person who said that, we have a lot of tools and we have a lot of scripts, and we're going to get tactical. So let's do those 5. Let's, in the next 15 minutes, unpack the 5 things that you talked about, and that'll give us 15 minutes as we close this out to get some community questions and for you and I to talk those things out. So you gain, Steve. Let's unpack the 5 things people can do to think.
Yeah, except I just made it 6, if that's okay, because you want another tool.
6.
The issue I'm going to tell you right now, because Rewire is in the field of emotional intelligence, which I think is very tangible. I mean, for goodness sakes, there's enough written about that. There are entire companies dedicated to this. You can study this at universities now. It is studying this part of the brain as it pertains to taking action is absolutely tangible. I'm a little concerned that some people that want scripts and give me hardcore things, I will just be honest with you right now and just tell you that those things often appeal to the part of the brain that is our prefrontal cortex that often doesn't cause change. You can get that stuff. If you think scripts are going to change you or a tool is going to change you, the truth of the matter is that stuff's been out there in spades. In our information-laden, crazy universe, you can get that stuff all over the place. But does it cause you to change? That's all I want to put there. Because I'm going to offer some too, but I just want to ask, does it cause you to change? I'm only into what actually causes us to change. And if what causes us to change is talking about how the brain works And if that feels high level for people and if it wasn't tangible enough, I just want to go, okay, but you can keep searching for those tangible things, but they're out there. And like you said, Dave, like you got tools up the wazoo on your site. You got scripts, you got tools, you got how to do all this stuff. And still some people, I believe, in order to make some change, in order to get clear, we have to actually think about it in a different way. So I'm happy to go through my 5, and I added 1 if that's okay. You want to do that, Dave?
Yeah, let's go through all 6.
I'm gonna whip them out. Hopefully people can write them down or whatever. Number 1, don't just get clear, get creative. And I wouldn't say just creative. I'd say get unique. It's something that many of us have learned from Todd Duncan and some other people in the industry, the whole concept of a unique selling proposition. I will tell you this, if you don't feel unique, like I say that differently, I speak about that differently, I'm able to articulate that differently. If you don't feel unique, if you just feel like everybody else is doing this and I'm just one of the crowd, you won't do it. And so what is your uniqueness? And it could, and by the way, there's still countless ways that we can be unique. What's yours? If you don't get unique, the likelihood of you adopting anybody else's scripts that don't feel unique to you is really just low. So what do you do that's unique? How do you bring it to the table? How do you speak about something? What is your uniqueness? And so there's ways to prospect in a unique way. There's ways to have programs and products that are unique and the way that you speak about them. There's even a way to utilize the mortgage coach and say, I do this in a really unique way. If you're not unique, all the scripts and stuff won't matter. And that's the one I added.
Hey, I want to jump in. So Nick jumped in and said, I want the scripts of the best and that they matter. And by the way, Nick, you're right. I mean, there are, some headlines pull better than others. Scrum scripts work better than others. And I definitely, I built my career on masterminding with the best. Heck, I built MortgageCoach, not because I invented everything that MortgageCoach does, it's because I took best practices of the best and put them together. So, but here's the deal. I owned it. I took things that other people were doing, I compared it to what I was doing, and I made it my own. So and there was a process to do that. Like you can get Jeremy Forcier's script, and again, my personal process is I would write it down. I use Evernote. I would literally put Jeremy's script at the beginning, and then I would write my script, and then I would kind of do one version that was really close to mine and his, and then I would do another version. And then I would talk about it, and I'd use the script in the marketplace and how'd that feel? Was that me? And I would change it. So for all you out there that say scripts matter, by the way, they do. They're valuable. They're great. But to Steve's point, you got to make it your own. You got to be intentional. And I do believe just giving everybody an obstacle to make change. Like if one of your changes is I want to get really good at my perfect borrower presentation, part of my process is I write things down, and like the more I write it down, the more I use it, and then I compare it, and I kind of go through an intentional process. That's how I make change. So anyways, I wanted to throw that out, Steve, because that dialogue.
Again, we'll do point and counterpoint here. I would even say that if you get the scripts, get Jeremy's scripts, get somebody's scripts, by all means, get them, study them, look at them. When you go out to say them, like to Dave's point, you're going to probably have to create your own language around that. But I want to point out that Pablo Picasso had a really interesting saying. He said, Pablo Picasso said, we must first follow the rules like a pro so that later we can break them like an artist. And so,
bam, that was so good.
Yeah, that's Pablo Picasso. I wish it was me, but we must first follow the rules like a pro so that later we can break them like an artist. You can't start by rule breaking. You can't, Dave's been doing this forever and ever, and if you hear his script about how to prospect or whatever, it comes with however many years of him doing that. He's probably learned how to break them like a pro. If you're new to this or if you want to get back into it, yeah, I'm all for scripts. Follow a plan, say something. Learning to break them like an artist is the process of learning to use them in a language that you're comfortable with, that makes you unique. However, at the beginning, you might have to actually follow a plan. And we actually might have to follow a script. That's why I'm not completely against scripts. I just want to invite people to eventually learn how to make it their own. But at the beginning, I think having them there is great. Okay, so number one, number two. Yeah, number one is feel unique. Number two is know and share your why. Know and share your why. Again, I'm so reluctant, Dave, to share this one because I know it comes off big picture-y. But the thing about it is people that know and walk around with why they're doing what they're doing, like I'm clear about that. When I become really clear that my why is about, I'm just going to make some money doing this, but it's a deeper why, it's a more noble why. And when I'm clear about that, my capacity to take action is off the charts high. And by the way, when I'm really clear about that, it's funny how you don't need scripts. Right? I wonder if our desire to have fancy and perfect language might also be a little bit of a misunderstanding of why we're doing it, right? Why? And when you have your why, like I'm really clear on my purpose and why I'm doing it, it's weird. I'm sure you all have met people like that. You meet someone who's really clear about why they're doing it. You don't have to hold them accountable to action. They're out there. They're passionate. They're going, look at Savage right here on the call. Like he's so passionate about his product because he knows it helps. He's seen it help. He doesn't need a script. Now he's been doing it for a long time and I get that, but he's so passionate about what he's doing. If you ask about the mortgage coach, talk about a guy that could go on for 3.5 hours or whatever, because his passion is there. His why is clear. His team's why is clear. And when you get that, action is just way easier. So if you're someone going, man, I need to do 2 more hours and I've got these goals, if it's been a goal and stuff that you want to go do and make some changes and achieve your goal, you might want to look at, if that's been a problem for you, you might want to resort back to getting really clear about why you're doing it. Because once that clicks, that it could almost answer everything. And Dave, I know lots of people that speak and we give workshops and I speak publicly and I hear people say that all the time, like if it's just one thing. But on this call, maybe there's some insight right there and right then for people, like if you've been in a doldrum, if you've not been able to prospect, you're not whatever. Some people need the kick in the butt. Maybe accountability helps, but I wonder how many people would benefit by getting super clear on why they do. If you walk out and go, you know what? I serve an amazing purpose in the whole cog of humanity. I bring people the idea that they can finance a personal dream, raise their family in it. Without financing, they might not have been able to do this. And we're part of that wheel. I'm helping not just put people in the American dream, but I'm part of creating memories and families. And that's what I do. When you're that clear about it, if that's your why, I don't know, I just made that up. It's funny how prospecting becomes less selling and more about a sharing of your personal passion. So you may want to go back to Dave. I know you have a tool about that. Rewire's got a tool. If you want our tool, we'll make that available. Dave, you can tell them through our website or through your Facebook. Dave's got a great why tool, but there could be people on the call it could be exactly what they need.
So let's check that off the list. If you're watching this on video, there'll be a link below to the Mortgage Coach Why worksheet. It starts with, hey, why are you a mortgage professional? And then it talks about why do you use Mortgage Coach? Because that's how we start adoption, is get clear on why, write it down, make it personal. But I guarantee you should do both. In fact, you should do our why worksheet, you should do Steve's, and you should watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk, where it really started for me. And I interviewed Simon. So, that's why when you, for our new loan officer playlist, the very first video in the Mortgage Coach new loan officer playlist is the Simon Sinek interview, because it starts with why. So, boom.
And then
by the way, we only got 20 minutes left, so let's make sure we get to all of this.
I'm not going to get to 5. I'm only going to give you 3 more because it's just too much and people can deal with that or whatever.
Oh, no, we're going to give it all to him, Steve.
Dude,
no, you're going to give the list. Give it all. Get ready. Let's go.
Okay, so then let's go fast. Because I was going to make a plug really quickly of if you know your why, you will find that accountability is less fruitful for you. You don't need high levels of accountability when your why is clear. Just a little plug for my accountability is for the birds.
And by the way, let's quit beating up on accountability. So let's say accountability works, but thinking different.
I had to plug it. You called it that. All right, number 3 is, and again, this Dave, you were saying half your life you should be doing this if you're new to the business, in 2 hours and 3 hours. I want to give you a little brain science about what actually works to take action. One is tiny habits. Charles Duhigg and BJ Fogg, these are scientists that wrote books about this. The brain works well when it feels successes. The smaller you can succeed initially, build upon that. If you walk out of this call and go, man, I need to prospect 4 hours a day and you've been doing none, I want to suggest that go ahead and keep that as a goal to do that. Starting tomorrow, prospect for 10 minutes. Do it once, feel it. Do it again the next day, feel it. Feel success. I'm doing it. The brain works well with tiny habits, buildable processes. So again, Dave, I really appreciate people saying 2 more hours, 3 more hours. That's great. Keep it as a goal. But if you need to, my suggestion is the brain works so much better when it wins and it has successes. So number 2 is practice tiny habits. Number 3 is visualize positive and specific action. I put this one in there because I realized that, and Dave, you and I have talked a little bit about this, about the narrative circuitry that our brain has. We all play tapes. All of us, we're playing tapes. We have experiences. I might get off this call and go, wow, that went well. And your tape might be like, that could have gone better or whatever. We're all playing tapes. Certain people learn to play positive tapes about what could happen. In fact, I want to suggest that worry, and for people that have anxiety and worry is playing a tape about a future outcome that's negative. That's what worry is. We're playing a tape where the future outcome is negative. We can combat that by intentionally practicing a future tape where the outcome is positive. It's cool that we had the Olympics recently. You got to see this in the Olympics. I don't forget what sport I was watching. I think it was bobsled or something like that, where you literally watch these people close their eyes and they see themselves going down the track. They're athletes all over are trained to do this. Why can't we learn that across the board? How much do we sit there often and go, oh, this could happen and this could happen. Oh, by the guy, that happened before. And we don't visualize positive things. And so one of my steps to actual implementation is to learn to visualize and practice positive visualization. That won't feel comfortable for some people, but athletes do it all the time. And when you do this, you can really bring some stuff into the brain that's a lot more clear about that. Make sense, Dave? Good with that one?
No, it makes total sense. I can't emphasize enough how important visualization is. By the way, just to keep the community engaged, we got 15 minutes left. I want to know if you think how you personally visualize is a strength of yours. I want to know that. And if you think that is a weakness of yours, I just want to know strength, weakness. I want to know how many people really feel like visualization is something they have. I mean, it's one of those things that's always been a gift to me, whether it was my career in sports, my career in business. I mean, visualization is just, one of those things that I do. And God, I think it's some ways more important. Well, I don't want to overplay. Practice is everything, but visualization is just massive. Let me know how many people think that that's a strength. How many people think that is a weakness? Anyways, we're getting all kinds of answers on it. for the most part, I think most of you feel that that is a strength. Anyways, let's do the next one, Steve.
Okay, great. The next one is, and again, this one's kind of deep, and so I'm going to just do it as quickly as I can, which is practice metacognition. Dave, I think you and I did an interview last year where I brought up the concept of metacognition, but metacognition is basically really understanding emotional intelligence by asking yourself a question, why I feel a certain way. So again, I'm trying to make this as tangible as possible. If you say to yourself today, that's it, I'm going to make an hour's worth of calls today. You recognize that that makes you feel anxious. It makes you feel whatever. If you could at least recognize that you recognize that, your prefrontal cortex will do something with that. It's when we don't recognize that at all. I tell people that if you won't practice metacognition, oftentimes we're getting our butt kicked by something we didn't even know existed. We are making decisions in life, folks, based on how we feel, based on our limbic system and our lizard brain. We are making, we are acting upon how we feel. You take more actions in your life based on how you feel rather than what you think. And that's the difference between only relying on the prefrontal cortex versus the limbic system, these two parts of our brain. But if you would practice metacognition, metacognition basically comes in the question today. And by the way, I mean today. If you get off this call and this doesn't cause you to go do something different, if you want to hear it all just esoterically and all a theory, you can do that. Maybe a handful of you are going to go, you know what, I'm going to go do that today. When you take a new action, it's going to be a little stark and you're going to feel something. And I mean, being honest, oftentimes it's not a good feeling. If it were always good and positive, you'd have already been taking the action. I'm just trying to draw the logic there. So to recognize that you don't feel good, to really draw it to your attention, will give you some insights into how to deal with it. If you don't recognize it, it'll wash over you, and then we'll do what everybody else does, which is say, oh, I'm too busy. Busyness has become the cosmic excuse for us not dealing with feeling the way we feel about taking certain actions. And Pablo Picasso didn't say that. I made that up just now. So, Dave, the last one, and you're going to love it.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Okay, you're going to love this one. The last one, you ready? Authentic accountability. How about that? I built it back into my, 5, now it's 6 things. I think once we do change the way that we think, I think a community is powerful, right? I think a community is powerful. I think that not only that, because neurochemically, we've got this one neurochemical called oxytocin, which is the feeling of camaraderie, community. I'm in this with people. I think feeling part of a community, feeling trusted, feeling like you can share both your successes and failures with people and feeling that, that's a higher level of accountability and a more authentic level of accountability that you can have with someone than you can get by thinking you're going to hire a coach or hire to someone, and if you don't do your stuff, they're going to bash you over the head. That's what I've been trying to come against. But I do think there is authentic accountability in community. And to the degree to which you can find that and be a part of that, I think it will help you take action. So be unique, know your why, practice tiny habits, practice positive visualization, practice metacognition, and go get some authentic accountability.
Love it, love it. And I'm going to add a 7th because I've interviewed you. So by the way, folks, I interviewed Steve, I don't know, weeks ago. It was a 15-minute interview. I can't remember exactly what we called it, accountability versus thinking differently. And you went on about the importance of meditation and how important just, you laying the foundation to even be that person that can do the tiny habits, to do the metacognition. I invented a new word. To be the person that can do all these things, maybe we need to slow down. Maybe we need to meditate more. So we do have a few more minutes. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, meditation, again, when you throw out there people that are going, I want tangible things, meditation couldn't feel less tangible to people. It feels like we're going to get on the ground and hum. The truth of the matter is learning to still our brains for 5 to 10 minute increments. There is some amazing, and I'm talking amazing, longitudinal, statistically valid studies, brain studies that show when we do that, we absolutely change in the way that we think. Meditation changes our insular cortex, a part of our brain that is part of our limbic system. It changes our insula. It makes us more creative. We remember more. It's just that I deal with a lot of people in mortgage banking going, oh, my brain is never still. I know. And learning to still it in 5 to 10 minute increments can be one of the most powerful things that you do. Except when you start talking about meditation, people get a little squishy about it because they start thinking we're going to hum and it's going to be this weird thing. There is tremendous evidence. And in fact, if you're big on throwing stuff up there, Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence, called Emotional Intelligence in the 90s, recently published a new book. I think I have it on the other side of my desk over here so I can show it to people. Yeah, sorry about that. He published a new book called Altered Traits by Daniel Goleman and Rich Davidson. And it's the science, the subtitle of this book, Dave, is Science Reveals How Meditation Changes Your Mind, Brain, and Body. And so this is a science book. I mean, so all the people that think it's this fluffy, esoteric thing, you're missing some amazing science. And so daily meditation, 5 to 10 minutes a day. There's, I think, 20 apps out there these days. Calm, Insight Timer, Headspace, some really cool apps that help people do that. And practicing daily meditation is sort of an undercurrent for a lot of us that are trying to execute on these other 6 things, Dave.
Love it. So here's what I'm going to do. I have shared my desktop, everybody. On it right now, I have the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind Group. And I put a post out there saying, what are you going to work to change this week? Would love for you to, Steve talked about the community and the power of the community. Would love for you to participate on that. If you are watching this and you're like, what group is this? If you're a mortgage professional, we'll let you into this private group. Also, I put that quote that Steve put. I just love that. Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. If you do have a question for Steve, we will be putting the recording of this on our YouTube channel. So within a couple hours, we will have this on YouTube if you want to re-listen to it. But what was your biggest takeaway? I know in chat right now, Dan Cruz just said, love number 6. That's exactly what my career needs right now. So Steve, you crushed it. You're adding lots of value. Juan said, Dave, thanks for pushing him to deliver all the steps. So we did get it all out of him. Juan also said he wanted to learn some more about Rewire in your company, Steve. If you could, I'll put that on the website right now. For folks that want to connect with you and keep this conversation going, tell them about your community, because you have a great community. You got a blog, you got the Lizard Quiz. Tell folks how they can connect, engage, learn from you, get coached by you. I've got it pulled up.
Yeah, Dave, I always appreciate that you do that, and I'm very grateful and honored that you do that. Rewire is a company we're dedicated to the concept of human change. We don't want to just talk about it. We actually help individuals and corporations go through change. We spend a lot of time on a particular part of the brain called the lizard brain. People that know me know, they call me lizard guy and lizard this. In fact, a few weeks ago, I published a book called Still the Lizard, which is how do we take this part of our brain and actually learn to still it. And so it's a really cool book. You can find that on Amazon, just Still the Lizard by Steve Scanlon. Dave, I'm sure you can put that out there at some point too. You can reach out to us directly through our website at rewireinc.com if you want to know more about our programs. We are doing some one-on-one work. We do one-to-many work where we put on and host workshops for corporations. We love doing that. We love gathering people together. There's a certain power in being able to do that. We've got a cool new platform now that we're doing a kind of a one-to-many thing in coaching, where it's group coaching, where we're putting groups of people together. It's more affordable. People can come into it. But just so you know, it's really all around brain. Again, I think there's a lot of good companies that offer accountability. I think there's a lot of good companies that offer just tangible things. if you work with Rewire, we have a saying here that says we can't help people act differently until we help them think differently. And so all of us are either certified or being certified through the Neuro Leadership Institute, NLI, and it's just brain-based stuff. And so if you're interested in thinking differently, you might want to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help you. And yeah, we write a lot. We publish a lot of articles. Some are really specific to mortgage banking, and our work is extended beyond that because we're working with a lot of other corporations and stuff. So that's my little 2-minute plug, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm a huge fan. Every time you post stuff, I always read it. You know, my inbox gets full with more stuff than I can read. But Steve, you've always been unique. Your approach at personal improvement, it's unique, and you've gone to the core. You know, how we think, how do we change the brain, the science of the brain. So I always love talking with you. I always love learning from you. And I think the community has got a tremendous amount of value. So folks, I can't recommend Steve's new book. Buy it. It's, you know, it's on Amazon. Highly recommend that you follow his blog. And by the way, do the lizard quiz. You know, that's just through our friendship. I am ADD. And every time I'm with Steve, it reminds me that I need to meditate more. That's the hardest thing in the world for me. You know, I mean, but by the way, when I do it, I am my best. I'm on point. I'm doing things right, and then I fall off the wagon. It is just super painful, but I know I'm gonna, you know, that was my big takeaway and reminder from today's call is that if you attack it at the core, I can't remember exactly what you said, but stillness. If we could just find ourselves 5 to 10 minutes of stillness, everything else comes into place. So here's the deal, guys. I hope you got value from today's call. Highly recommend that you get clear on what you want to change over the next week to 2 weeks. Hope you will use our community to help you get clear on that. Highly recommend that you watch at least one Mortgage Coach interview a week. I do my best to find the most successful loan officers in the country. And one of the reasons why I'm so committed to these interviews is I believe that if we get people to think differently, they'll act differently. And I have found that the best way to get people to think differently is to have highly credible people that are respected, that are successful, telling success stories and sharing strategies. I call it just inspirational leadership. That's why we create so much content, is because, you know, we know that everybody's busy out there. You're running here, you're running there. I don't expect any one person to listen to all of our interviews. You know, I don't even expect you to listen to half of them. But if you just listen to, 15 minutes a week of Mortgage Coach, you will be a more successful loan officer. We will get you to think differently. We will get you to act differently because we're interviewing the best of the best. So hopefully you'll engage. Steve, you got 2 minutes. I'm going to push a poll question just to see how everybody liked today's call. But any last words of wisdom as we wrap up today's call?
Words of wisdom, huh? Dave, the last time we were on this call, you asked me for like the one thing, and I've been telling that story ever since in workshops because you put me on the spot and asked me what's one thing that you want people to walk away with. And when you put me on the spot like that, it was funny because I always thought to myself, like, I think our work is somewhat comprehensive. There's a lot of things. I don't know about one thing, but you made me think about that. And since then, you changed me too. Believe it or not, if there's one thing I always ask people to do is be okay with discomfort, right? We won't change until we actually get a little uncomfortable. You just won't. And so for those of us that still look for the 5 easy ways and 6 simple steps and 6 things, I mean, even the 6 or 7 things we came up with, you'll note none of them are easy. And so ease sells, but doesn't work. Ease sells, but doesn't work usually. And so I would say to the degree to which you're going to go practice something different, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel uncomfortable. And as we grow in our ability to be okay with discomfort, I think we grow, period.
Chase the pain, everybody. You heard it from Mr. Scanlon. You know, go out there and let's have a week of pain, but let's have a week of intentional pain, things that are going to make you better. Steve, I appreciate you, brother.
Intentional growth. Pain is not pain. Don't do pain for pain's sake. Do pain for growth's sake. There. Peace, bro. Thanks, man.
Have a good one, everybody. Hope we delivered an hour of value. We'll see you next week. Bye now.